the Rebbe to learn Hilchot Pesachim, the maybe in Mitzorim. We have the honor today to have our dear Rav, Moradasa von Shuv, and Medali Titulim Harav, Agol Harav, Dovער הכהן Bell, is going to teach us Halacha in Hilchot Pesachim. Rav Bell, b'vakasha. Before that, we have to do give Docker to see what everybody can do.
The emphasis is say halacha and hilchos based b'chira. Many halachas together, and unfortunately, for myself and everyone else, I have more questions than I have answers. But at least to be mafsir the shailas, the Radbaz in Hilchos Ma'aser Korbanos brings them from the Sefer Kafta V'Ferach all the way at the end of Hilchos Ma'aser Korbanos that the din is that if somebody brings a korban b'chutz, so he's chayiv. When does that apply? When you would be able to bring the korban b'fnim. So the shaila comes if there's no Beis Hamikdash, so then why should you be chayiv? Because you can't bring korban. So he brings down the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, whether you're allowed to be makriv even though there's no Beis Hamikdash, and we pass on like Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore you can bring a korban even if there's no Beis Hamikdash. He brings down over here from the Kafta V'Ferach. Kafta V'Ferach lived, let's say, up to 150 years after the Rambam. Maybe he was when the Jews were kicked out of France. So he went traveling different places, and he wrote down. It was a big Talmud Chacham. And he wrote down different things that he saw in different places. He ended up in Eretz Yisrael, and when he took his sefer to be looked over, there was a Revarach over there who was looking over the sefer. And when he was talking with him, so he said, I think it was around 3 years before then, in the year 17 of the Elef Hashishi, so that was say around 100 years after the Rambam. So it was one of the Balatesis. So the Girsa that we have the Kafta B'Ferach, the Rabbi Hananel of Paris. The other Girsois of the Rabbi Chil, it's more nofuts that said in the name Rabbi Chil of Paris, others said Rabbi Chaim, Kain of Paris, whoever it was, they went to Yerushalayim, they wanted to be Makrav Korban. This Rabborach told the Kafta B'Ferach, and he said he was so mobile and he was busy with a sefer that he didn't even think about it. Then he left and he says, "What about everybody's telling me there's no paraduma?" And he started with all the shaylas and he writes down over there Kafta B'Ferach. How could they be? The Chachmis, others bring down that the Chachmi line wouldn't go into Makrav. And there are many shaylas on that entire story, but the bottom line from all of these stories is that we see that after the 6-Day War in 1967, after the 6-Day War, when they took over Har HaBayis, so the Rebbe told the Chassidim they should leave Yerushalayim, because according to Rabbi Chil Paris, you're allowed to bring a korban Pesach. Soon see why korban Pesach. You're allowed to bring korban Pesach. If you don't bring korban Pesach, you chayiv kares, v'kir of makom. So if you reichel makom, so then your party, you have to bring a Pesach Sheni. So the Rebbe said Pesach Sheni, they should also leave Yerushalayim. Go chayshish, and it's a case we should be chayshish. The Rishit Rebbe party can bring the korban Pesach zman hazeh. So we see that no matter what the halakhic objections were to korban, so you can learn Pasha. We don't understand all the orders of the Balatais. He knew what he was doing. He wanted to bring up korban. So he had, according to his understanding, something worked out. So you have to be a korban. On the other hand, of the Mishtadl and many svarim are trying to Mishtadl. What did he have in mind? What was his heter? So there are many issues that seem to have been solved. First of all, there's the union of a korban sibur. First of all, everybody's tummy without the paraduma, we all tummy mace. So the din is that the tumah dechuya b'tzibur. So that eliminates already all korban yachid you can't bring, because the tumah does not eliminate the idea of a korban yachid. You can't bring korban yachid b'tumah. Korban tzibur you can bring b'tumah. Korban tzibur, you have other problems because then you have to bring up machzeh shekel. So we don't have machzeh shekel. So how exactly are you going to do that? So you can't do that either. So what do you come out with? You're left with Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach has aspects of both the Korban Yochid and a Korban Tzibur. Since it has a Zman Kavua, it has the din of a Korban Tzibur, and there is the Chuya B'Tzibur. So therefore you can bring the Korban, the Korban, if the whole Tzibur is Tommy Tumas Meish, so then you can bring a Batuma. I don't know, machzeh shekel. It's a Korban Yochid. Everybody has to pay for their own Korban Pesach, so that took care of that problem. There's no Beis HaMikdash, so the Rambam Pastins, the Makriv, Mafu B'Shein Shabbos, and they go one at a time to go and for all the Shilas, and many there. A whole svarim written on this subject, and especially after with the Aliyah in the 150 years ago. So then there was a famous Sefer, the Rishasian. So he wrote on all different reasons why you should be able to try to convince Rothschild that they should bring Karbonis. So he had a whole Sefer was in correspondence with Akiva Eiger. Some Sefer wrote answering some of his tainas. It was a big pulmus that was going on at that time, and it continues ad hayem. But there's the one issue that seems to be the stickiest, unsolvable. There are many issues. There's the union of how do you have Kain? You have to have yichus for a Kain. Who has? You have to have a yichus back to somebody that was able to gabi misbeach, where you can find the Kain and yichus. Then you have machlekes on the avnit the shatnez. You have machlekes how to make it. So how you gonna do? So you have 2 days. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna put on both of them. I don't know how he has room. The avnit is so big. He can put on both versions of the avnit and the masne. If this one is kosher, the other one is not. Yeah, but it's shatnez. You can't do it too. One of them is sure wearing shatnez. It's only the deich and the carbon. Anyway, found around all the problems with the techelis and what's the argom, all different problems. They found a way of everything. One problem remains, and that is that although you can bring a carbon without a Beis HaMikdash, you can't bring a carbon out of mizbeach. Nirim Mizbeach. Nirim Mizbeach. The Rambam says, right at the beginning of Perek Beis, Hilchos Beis Bechira, the Rambam has this whole Perek mostly about the Mizbeach. Mizbeach mekemei mekuben b'yeser, ve'ein meshanin eisem mimkeim b'leil. You cannot move the Makam HaMizbeach. So, how to build a Mizbeach is one problem. So we have all of these midas, but we see that all of these things, even by the Bayesheni, some of the Sfarim make a cheshbon. We said that there were 70 years between the Churban Bayis Rish and the Binyan Bayesheni, but as far as the Mizbeach, it was 52 years. That brings a cheshbon, say that Adeiris. It was 52 years. So there are people around today. Remember what happened? When was it? 52 years ago? This was Tavshin Lamed. People remember Tavshin Lamed. 52 years ago, you had Kainim around that serving the Beis HaMikdash. And they couldn't figure out what the Mokum Mizbeach is. Nobody knew. So it says in the Gemara, and the Rambam brings down that they needed 3 Nevi'im. So the Gemara brings down in Zvachim, Daf Samach Beis, so it brings down that they saw different. How did they know it was the Mokum Mizbeach when they came back over there? So one of them saw the Michal, the Malach Michal was bringing Karbonis. Another one that you smelled, the whole place smelled like potatoes, and this place smelled like Evorim, smelled like burnt meat, different things that they saw. So then the Gemara brings down that there were 3 Nevi'im. Rashi says Chagai, Zachariah, and Malachi came up from Bovel, and the Rambam brings down over here. So that was halacha. Halacha Gimel Midas HaMizbeach Mukavanas Harbe. So it's a shini lashon over there. Lagabe the place it says Mekuvan B'Yeser. Lagabe the measurements is Mekuvanas Harbe. Fine. And he says, Mizbeach Shabona B'nei Agela came Mizbeach Shas Libanas Asu. So they built it similar to the one that it says in Yechezkel. Ve'ein laheis above midos abol digreim, and you can't add, you can't subtract. Then the next halacha, Shleish Nevi'im Olim Imon Min Agela, Echad Heid Le'en Al Mizbeach. One gave Nevuah, which is the place in Mizbeach. That took care of that problem. Echad Heid Le'en Al Midesa. The other one gave Nevuah on the measurements. That Zadik Lashon, the Rebbe points out in Hilchot Sichos that the Rambam adds to the Lashon over here, Heid Lehen Shemakrivin al Mizbeach Abu Bishen Shambayis. That's what it says in the Gemara. So the Rambam adds al Mizbeach Hazeh Kol Karbonis. So there has to be mamish on this Mizbeach. The first time, what's going on over here? We have a lachs, you have a machlekes right the from the lashon. You're going to pass it according to a navi. And how is it you're going to determine the makam mizbeach as a mekuvanis beyeser, and then you mekum beyeser, and then you're going to be passed in according to the navi, and so to the midas. So b'meili Yechezkel was given the nevuah. Okay, so also a navi is not allowed to be machadash davar. Anyway, the Gemara brings down that there is a maximum that was built in, that even though there was a tzivui that the mizbeach, the Rambam gives all the cheshbenis, that in days Moshe Rabbeinu was this size, and the Bayis Rishon was this size, and the Bayis Sheni, they added on, instead of 28 amas, they added on, it was 32 amas. So the Gemara brings down that the midas or the mizbeach has a maximum that was given. It cannot be more than 60 amas. It can't be more than 60 amas. So they decided to add, the Gemara gives a cheshbon. Why is it that they decided to add on another 4 amas? Again, the cheshbon the Gemara brings in this one. Okay, so you're not allowed to change it. They made it ben gereya, but in the meantime they changed it. The Mishnah says in midas that they changed it. Oh, bnei agela, the Mishnah says. Right, the first Mishnah in Perek Gimel, which talks about the Mizbeach. So right over there in Masech Midas, so they came to Bnei Agela, and they decided they're going to change the Midas. Yeah. Kashol Bnei Agela, Sifol of Arba Amis Min Adavim, Arba Amis Min Amayrev, Min Gam, based on a pasuk in Yechezkel. Okay, so they figured at that part of the pasuk in Yechezkel, they figured out there's other thing. The pasuk in Yechezkel. Some things they changed, some things they didn't change. It says over there in Yechezkel, over there in the Perek Mem Gimel, that you say there's supposed to be 2 amas high instead of 1 amma high. That they didn't change. So they added another 2, so different reasons to fit to what it says in Yechezkel, that it was 12 amas, the ribua, so you needed 24 amas empty space over there for a maracha. In any case, Mefarshim say that in order to determine something factual, so that's not a problem, Teidel B'Shamayim. So the Navi says this is a piece of chaylev. So then you're not allowed to eat it. We don't say Teidel B'Shamayim. The Rambam says the end of Hilchos Malachim that the Mashiach is going to come, and with the whole section of their belly, they're going to say he's b'miyachas the Kainim and the Levim. Teidel B'Shamayim. So some of them are first machalik between the Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh, but Pashtus, if you're establishing a fact, so that has nothing. It's not a steer to all concepts of Teidel B'Shamayim. Shaila is makriv ma'apo pishayin bias. So why did you need a navi for that? B'churi you have a machlekes and it's an Indian and Teda. But the makam mizbeach. So that means that Rabbi Chilip Paris was ready to make a mizbeach to keep all of these things. It looks so complicated. How is Rabbi Chilip Paris going to come in and build a mizbeach and bring Chom Pesach? How in the world is he going to do such a thing? It says at the end of the perek. So based on the Gemara, after giving the whole description about how to build it and how to pour it and the way they did, there's a Moshe Rabbeinu, the way it's Shalom Shalom since Allah Yud Zayin, the end of the perek base, Arba Krone Shal Mizbeach, V'Yesodei V'Ribuei Ma'akiv. That what is Ma'akiv? You have to have the 4 corners on top. You have to have a Yesod, and it has to be square. And that's Ma'akiv. If you don't have that, it's possible. Who possible? It's very strange. Here the Ram lists 3 things which are ma'akiv. Okay, I guess that's the mizbeach, and then there's a 4th thing which is the kevish. Sharbat and ma'akiv, and all 4 of them are ma'akiv. You don't have a mizbeach without these 4 things. Midas arke, midas rachbe, midas kimase. Ain't a ma'akvin. But the measurements, after we went through this whole perek, and the Rambam says, I want you to get it straight, because sometimes it's an amma, which is 64. Sometimes it's an amma, 5 tefachim. So the Rambam makes a whole drawing over there, so you should know exactly where it's 5 and exactly where it's 6. It makes a cheshbon of how many tefachim it is. Fine. After the end, he said, well, this is not ma'akiv. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not allowed to be gerei, you're not allowed to be meisiv, but it's not ma'akiv if you don't do that. Yeah. So you can't have less than it was by Moshe Rabbeinu in the Midbar. So it comes out like this. And the Gemara dashes out that any time it says in Pasuk, Ham Mizbeach with a Hey Yediyah, then it's Ma'akiv. And the Gemara goes through, but it says over here Mizbeach, it says here Mizbeach, and the Gemara answers why this thing is not Ma'akiv. But it comes out that we had these 3 Nevi'im. Okay, so we took a Makriv Ma'av backs. Fine. Then it says the one Navi spoke about Makam Mizbeach, and one gave Nevuah about the Midas of the Mizbeach. When it comes to what's Ma'akiv, The Rambam says clear, since it doesn't say HaMizbeach, so it's not makif. So what's it Mokum Mizbeach? It's makif, it's not makif. It's Mokuvim B'Yeser. And B'chlal, you look in the Gemara, the whole machlekes about where was the Mokum HaMizbeach. You have a machlekes Tanoim. Was it right in front of the Heichal? Was it on the south side of the Heichel? Was it on the north side of the Heichel? Machlekes. Fragt the Chashayla, the Mokum is Mokuvim B'Yeser. I have machlekes and Metzias. Where is it? So it's a mikdash, bein and mikdash bim kamen. It has a place. So therefore, here, the Beis Hamikdash has a place. The Mizbeach also has a place. Now there's a machlekes, how you fit these two things together. So, but Parshas, the Rebbe is medayik. The Rebbe doesn't bring a legabe this inyan, but the Rebbe says the Mokum Mizbeach is Mokum B'Yeser. Whereas by Beis Hamikdash, it says bein and mikdash bim kamen. It has to be Bahar Maria. So the Rebbe brings down. It's very interesting. And all of these people that are wandering around on Har HaBayis, because they know punkt where the Azara is, or at least they know a place that's Azara free, but there's no such place. Because those that say Hurdas made the whole Har HaBayis much more than Takam al Takama. So where exactly was the Beis Hamikdash? Some say it was in the south, some say it was in the north, some say it was Mamnish in the middle, some say it was this side, that side. Whatever the Mokum you have on the Har HaBayis, there's a daya that says that's where it was. But the Rebbe brings down, but within the Takam, al-Takam doesn't say where the Beis Hamikdash has to be over there. Okay, so it has to be more from the south and less from the west. Rambam makes the cheshbon, but he didn't. So they were conveying exactly where it is. So b'meila, so it comes out according to Rebbe's beer that the Mokum and Mizbeach and Mokuvim B'Yeser. So the Mizbeach is that put. Whether it's north or south of the Mizbeach, the way it's written is like you keep moving the Mizbeach, but it's not. You move the whole Beis Hamikdash to go around the Mizbeach. Because the Mizbeach comes out from the Rebbe's Mokuvim B'Yeser, and that has to be, this is the place, Mokum B'Adam Arish, and Neach, and the whole Arich at the beginning of the Perek. So therefore, if you want to say that it's in the north, the whole Beis Hamikdash has to be on this side. You say it's in the south, the whole Beis Hamikdash you have to move to this side. They come place from the Rebbe's beer, but this still doesn't solve our problem. How in the world is Rabbi Chila Paris, or whoever it was from Paris, how is he going to bring a carbon without a Mizbeach? So he's going to bring a Mizbeach. So the different Biyurim, each one has a problem. Each one has another problem, but just to be matzia. So there's the simple explanation is that it's not makif. So if you know where it is, then you build it there, and if not, you have to bring a carbon. You have to bring a carbon. You have to bring carbon pesach, otherwise you chayav kares. So you don't know what the place is, so it's not makif. Where do you get from the not makif? Because the Rambam at the end of the Perek, he says everything you have to do. Mukuf b'yeser, fine. But then he says, but it's not makif. So what are you supposed to do? If it's not makif and you don't know where it is, so you build it the closest you can. So it's not makif. The Rambam doesn't say it's not makif. The Rambam said the midas are not makif. The size of the mizbeach is not makif. What about makam mizbeach? So back over here, the Nevi'im, it's b'chod ha'machzor. The Gemara brings it down that one Navi said about the place of the mizbeach, the other Navi said about the measurements of the mizbeach. They want to say, so the same din, just like it doesn't say ha-mizbeach by the midas of mizbeach, doesn't say ha-mizbeach by the makam mizbeach, so it's not makif. One text. Let's say the terutzim, we'll find to bring the shlogs up all the terutzim. That's one teretz is given. There's another teretz that it's a machlekes. But how we have in Claudia Poskim with these things normally we pass like the Rambam. We don't have the Nesa Kalim don't say anything. But what happened in machlekes Rambam Ravid? So there are from Claudia Poskim many say that if a machlekes Rambam Ravid, they pass like the Ravid. It depends what the other Mefarshim say, so on and so forth. One of the fundamental machlekes, the Radvaz over here in the end of Maisa Karbonis, he said, how could in the world did he want to bring a carbon? Tamati al Maisa Zer. He said, how could he think? He says, this whole place is in the hands of the Goyim. How could he bring it? How could he think of bringing it? So he said, maybe then the Goyim were chayes, they were not in operation, whatever the case is, and they were not going to be makbid. He doesn't mention any of the Mokum HaMizbeach, but he says there's two Yeseides that you need in order to even think about this. Is one, you have to paskin that the kitcher of l'shaita, kitcher losid loving, okay, and the other is the yemakarev alpha pishein shom bias. But kitcher losid loving, the Ravid doesn't agree. The Ravid holds it's not kitcher losid loving. Kitcher losid loving. So one of the svaras that was brought is if so. So there's no kedushin harabayis now. No kedushin harabayis now. So that means there's no inyan miyuchad to be makriv over there. Then, according to the Rambam, once the Beis Hamikdash, the Rambam goes through the whole cheshman about the Mishkan Shiloh and the Given, and when it was mutar b'bama, and you don't need a mizbeach, you have to the bama is it doesn't a bama is still a mizbeach, but it doesn't have all of the requirements of a mizbeach, and you can build it anyway. You don't have to worry about makom a mizbeach. So according to the Ravid, they want to say, according to the Ravid, so then you could be makar on a bama. So we don't have to worry even about the makom a mizbeach. So good. So he decided to make it there. It doesn't say he can make it there. So he passed maybe passing like the Ravid. Then it says that the Teisus in Tmura daf chafalef. And it's mashman from the Teisus over there that there's no problem bringing a korban bisman as there. There's an argument about the Teisus, but it's Azoil just a Teisus maybe holds like the Ravid. In any case, this is the Mavatul, the Sforim Mavatul Hakobakel. Why? Because Manav. So you want to say it's a bummer, so it's a bummer. You can't bring korban tzim on a bummer. You can't bring korban yochin on a bummer. So what are you going to go and be deiche betuma? Deiche betuma when? Because it's korban tzibur. How can you bring on a bummer? Another test. A third general approach is that we'll figure it out. We'll figure out where it is. We have different signs. We have the kesel. So you have a Radbaz. The Radbaz says that he knows it's the Masada going all the way back. That the stone that the Muslims built their mosque on top of it, that is a Kedesh Kadosh. It's Kedesh Kadosh. You measure it. So anybody that's been to the case, the main part of the case is way down underneath. So like what's coming over the surface over there is way high up. And B'chlal, the size of that rock is bigger than the whole Kedesh Kadosh. Does it say that's the rock? Plus the Cheshbenis from the Radbaz, there's two different places that Radbaz writes about in Shuvas, and they don't really match. And you make the Cheshbenis, you start counting from the Kesel. So there's a machlekes where the kesel is the wall of the Harabayas or the wall of the Yazhara, and it doesn't make sense according to either one. So those who want to say that's really that rock is the mizbeach. It's not the Kedesh Kadoshim either. Okay, but aside all their problems, like the same people that are going around walking on Harabayas because they say they know where things are. So we'll measure. We'll measure. We're so smart we can measure. They weren't so smart in the days of the Bayis of the Bayis Sheni when they came back. And the Gemara says the Rambam Paskins that we need a Navi to tell you. So if you just take out a stick and measure, so why do you need a Navi to tell you the Makam Mizbeach? They got a tape measure and measure. There's this wall, there's that. It says different. Then it was Oro Adi Yesodba, that they destroyed everything, there's no trace of the walls. It looks from this Rashi. Zvachim looks like Rashi doesn't necessarily agree with that, but anyway, those that say there was no walls, there was no remnant, they didn't have the choice. But now we have a way of measuring, so we'll figure it out. You measure over there, and this is the rock. The dome of the rock is the Kedesh. Which side of the rock you're going to measure from? It doesn't exactly make too much sense. Another svara, very interesting svara, sefer called Karnas HaMizbeach, goes through all different shittas. There's a heart over there. He says, he said he was bothered by this thing, and he went. He said, I have to learn something. So he opened up a Gemara. It was a gadol. He opened it up. It opened up to Zvachim Samachal. He said one of the things that they changed by the Bayis Sheni is that Mizbach Adom Tasali. So you had to fill it up with earth. So by Moshe Rabbeinu, so it's shaila is, can you build it al gabe kippin? Because the whole Harabayas B'chlal was built because of Tumas Ataheim. They built on top of arches, so it should be empty underneath, so people shouldn't be walking on top of Tumas Ataheim. The Rabbi Pasach Tafach, you have empty Tafach, so it's not matami anybody that's on the ground. But the Mizbeach is not allowed to be on that. The Mizbeach has to be on solid ground. So he says, push it, take a shovel, pick up the floor, start digging, and if you find something, but there's nothing underneath, that's Makom HaMizbeach, because the rest of the place, the only place that didn't have underneath Mechilas, but they're keeping, Agabe keeping, so the truth is that Dirish Hasiyan wrote this Eitzah. There's a little problem, they're not going to let us dig up over there so fast, but today, they've done, the Rambam brings down the Rebbe, famous Sicher from the Rebbe, that the place where that the Genius, the Orden, the time of Bayis Rishon. So how are you allowed to move the Orden? The Rebbe teaches that place was l'chatchila, part of the Beis Hamikdash. That was part of the plan that it should be hidden away. So there were early archaeologists that did digging. There was one that went digging over there, one of these old English archaeologists, and he dug under under the rack over there in the mosque until he threw him out. And he found a cave underneath. He found an open area. He moved away, and there was a cave, and he went to the cave. Then he found another cave, and then they kicked him out. But the archaeologists come in. They have with different sorts of sounding equipment that you can put down sound waves and different types of waves and map out what's going on under the ground. So there's maps now of which places are empty and which places are not empty. So it comes out according to that. You can figure it out by seeing which part is not al-gabe keeping. But nobody's done it, and it's not clear whether you'll find more than one place and what exactly you're going to do. But one thing we see, it's just interesting that the Machana Mikdash, an old city, they built, everything should be ready, that the Gula comes now, they will have Big Dekuna and this Kateras, they have everything over there. There's a whole argument on many of these things that they made a Menera that's ready to go, except that it's a curved Menera. I once visited over there, spoke with the Rabbanim over there. These guys know that have a sticha inside out. It's not like every order, they know the whole thing. They disagree. Okay, and their proofs not very strong now Pinigla either. But in any case, they have everything which is ready to go. So what are they going to do with this Bech? The whole building is not that big. And then how are you going to schlep it? And it has to be built with the Rambam gives the whole Seder over there. You have to have a construction team to go and pour the cement and the stones and everything like that. How are you going to build it? So they said, built on this Rambam, they made only the parts of the Makif. Then it cannot be smaller than the Mizbeach Shabbat. So they built a Mizbeach the size of Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach. Okay, and they made it Rabua, they made it with Kronis, and they made it with Yisod. And they said, but the evidence will go build a real one that it's ready to go. Okay, I'm not giving any haskama to them. It's only with the general. Who knows what they found chelis and they found this and they found that. All of these things that Rabbi Rashab said, it's clear from Al-Pi Kabbalah that there will be no chelis until the time of Geula. Then there'll be chelis. So that's what he did. There was not chelis. Why? Because we have Al-Pi Kabbalah. We know there's no chelis until that time. So it doesn't have to go when it's on Eben Shapim with the Rishon. That we hold this nothing. The kitzur that with this that the Rebbe then later on when they gave up the Bailis to Harabayis and they gave it back, so the Rebbe said, okay, now it's you don't have to worry, you don't have to leave Yerushalayim now because now we can't do it anymore either. But it's just interesting. It's a davar sichli. You know, if you're in control of Harabayis, so then Rebbe Chila Paris or one of his descendants can come be makar of a carbon. Okay, but and now that they won't let you, so you don't have to leave Yerushalayim. But this is beferish in the Radbaz. He says, what the it says, how is it possible to bring the fnim if the goyim don't let you? But if the goyim do let you, so then already since it's efsher lahavi b'fnim, so therefore you chayev and shchut dechutz mibachutz. So that means it's efsher, and it's an efsher. You don't have makam mizbech. Weißt du, it's nicht ma'akev or one of the other terutzim. Pesach nish, but then lochach.
Just remind everybody following Shila Service, there will be a Sima Seches.